Welcome back, wonderful humans. I'm Danielle and I currently live alone and I'm trying to shift towards healthier meals whilst remaining on a budget. Went into two places this week, the first one being Lidl. And as you can see, I think it's overall pretty healthy collection of things. There is some wine at the back, but we'll come to that a little bit later on. And as always, I'll put the price just on the screen here. But because of that wine, it does come in at over £30. Without it, it would have been under 20. So swings and roundabouts there for sure. So I was taking a look in the vegetable section and I spotted that they had some simply parsnips. These are technically grade two parsnips rather than their fancy ones that are grade one parsnips. But taking a look at them, they look perfectly decent. They're variable in size for sure, but at the end of the day, when you chop them up to roast them or to put them in a soup, it doesn't really matter what they look like. It's all about the taste, and I'm sure they'll taste perfectly fine. And then I got some broccoli. They had a pack that included two smaller broccolis, which for me does tend to work better. And again, as always, I just normally end up putting the stalk either in to be roasted or I can put it into a soup as well. Decided to get some green beans. They're obviously pretty high in fibre for sort of a vegetable. And I decided that would have been the more sensible move rather than getting something that sometimes holds a little bit more sugar. So I got those, and obviously they're pretty versatile as well. Not 100% sure what I'll do with them yet, but I'm sure I will figure something out. I feel like I say that a lot with green beans, but I think I might end up chopping them up and sort of pan frying them along with some other vegetables when I'm perhaps doing some chicken or something during the week. And then they had some reduced fat soft cheese. This is for my American friends like cream cheese, but a little bit more looser and use it in pretty much the similar way. So I just grabbed some of that. It's super cheap, but I figured it might make for a nice either part of a creamy sauce somewhere along the lines or just to put into something like a sandwich. Then I got some more carrots. I did obviously go through the actual checkout this time rather than self service. I didn't think about doing that until I'd put the carrots down, and I felt a bit sorry for the fact that they had to pick them up to put them on the weighing scale rather than just having them all in a little bag. But then I also got some fresh milk. I still have that cauliflower and a few other bits left over from last week. So I decided that I'd probably make myself sort of cauliflower, cheesy, vegetable pasta bake. So I figured I might as well get a fresh milk, seeing as I knew that I'd be using it up in the near future. And then I got a large punnet of raspberries. Been taking a look at a few things, obviously, as to what some better berries and everything are. And I definitely seen that raspberries and blueberries are up there. So I just got a large punnet of those. The price on them wasn't too bad. And obviously, getting a price for both of them actually worked out better in terms of the price per gram sort of amount. The raspberries are a punnet of 250 grams, and the blueberries are one of 500 grams. If I find that I'm not going to use them all up in advance, I will just pop some of them into a little freezer bag and obviously into the freezer to make sure that then I have them as hand as frozen ones just to add some meals as we're going through the week as well. Then I did get some of this onion and chive cottage cheese. I know cottage cheese isn't a thing for everybody, but I do find it to be quite useful to have on hand and that I can incorporate it into a few meals. I definitely don't do it as a replacement to certain other things, but instead sort of as an additional item. And then I also got some avocados. Avocados are obviously pretty high in fat, but it's, I suppose, one of the healthier fats to have. And I would rather have something like that than sort of some of the other alternatives. So I figured I'd get that, and at least it's a bit green as well to have as part of some meals throughout the week, perhaps as a little bit of breakfast or something. I also got another butternut squash. This was the one that I figured would probably make the most sense size wise for what I intend to do. I might end up roasting some of it off and then putting the rest of it into a soup. We will see what I end up doing with it. But I also still have a few soups left as well. So I should probably, like I said, I might end up roasting it up sort of especially where the weather's getting a bit colder. And I was running low on eggs, so I just grabbed 15 more of them. I seen a video recently about how people have been swapping fancy eggs into the cheapest egg containers and vice versa to try to save a little bit of money but feel fancier. It's obviously wrong to do, but I did therefore double check my actual eggs that I was getting, and you could tell that they were definitely still just the mixed size one. Some of them were sort of a lot more medium to large size. I'd never say any of these are particularly small size though. And it obviously says mixed eggs, and it can be between small, medium, and large, but they definitely do normally fall between the large and extra large ones. Sort of the medium ones at worst, so definitely worth considering if you tend to go through a lot of eggs and you go to Lidl. I also decided to have a bit of a treat, and I decided to get one of these garlic and cheese pizza breads. Haven't had one of them for a while, but they were on sort of one of the Lidl offers, and I figured it'd be a nice quick thing to have, and I could perhaps do it and have it over a couple of days for lunches as well. And I grabbed an apple, mango, spinach, and avocado cold pressed juice. They've moved the juice section around in Lidl. I think when the freezers broke and the fridges broke a few weeks ago, they decided to make the most of that opportunity to move things around. But I was sort of minding my own business, and they were right next to the sort of the cheese and everything section, which I definitely wasn't expecting. But then onto that wine that I mentioned, I got a red wine. I got a Malbec. Obviously, I haven't tried this one before. It's part of the Lidl Deluxe range, but I wanted to try it to see what I think of it. Then if I do enjoy it, I'll probably get another one to have for around the sort of Christmas time as well. At least that's sort of my theory. Like I say, I normally tend to lean towards reds and roses a lot more these days than I did sort of roses and whites. But I am a little bit picky with reds. But I know that Malbec I normally get along with well. So I figured I'd see how I got on with that one. But then for roses, I did then get this other one here, which I think should be a sort of a nice one. I trust it quite a lot. I'm normally pretty okay with roses, regardless of sort of what particular type they are. But I do tend to lean towards sort of more medium rosé ones or slightly lighter coloured ones. So I'm pretty confident with that. I used to go for quite a lot of white Zinfandel, but a lot of the ones that I've been finding in the store recently are really, really dark in colour, and they're not normally my sort of preference when they do become darker. I find that they tend to be quite a lot sweeter the darker in terms of colour that they get. But maybe that just happens to be the ones that I've tried. And I did also get a few feminine products as well, which I won't bore you with, but they obviously did contribute towards that total as well. And for any females out there, yeah, I'm sure you appreciate that they're not the cheapest things in the world. But then the other place I went to was the butcher's. I hadn't been since August, and I was starting to run low on a few things in the freezer. I think I still had some pork left, but I obviously wanted to top up on things. So I got some chicken liver. It already came frozen, which is perfect because I intended to freeze it to be able to make some pate for Christmas. So I got some of that, and then I'll have plenty left over to use as actual liver as well during the week. But then I got some chicken breasts, and I decided that I would show it to you as I was prepping it all, just so you can see kind of the actual quantity and size of everything I got. I've obviously done it all into individual size portions. Given I do live alone, I figured it made sense to do it individually. And if I ever then want to batch cook or do anything that involves more than one portion, I am obviously able to take it out. But it's better to take sort of just one piece out at a time than have to sort of trudge through multiple of the same meals or pretty similar meals or sort of meats over the course of a day or two. So I asked for 6 chicken breasts, but I think I did end up with 7, which honestly I'm not going to complain about at all. It's always good to have a lot of chicken to hand, especially if I am trying to sort of shift towards having more protein dishes. I might end up cooking some of them up and having them sort of as part of lunches or something. And then, of course, I wanted to point out that it is important that when you're putting things into the freezer to make sure that you do tie them up securely in some freezer safe, friendly bags, and then label them as well. So obviously on all of these, I am just putting chicken times one and then the date of purchase that I got them as well. In my case, I did purchase them on the 1st of November. So it makes it also look a nice little bit of sort of aesthetic in terms of all of those ones dotted around. But I don't show you me doing this for everything, but I did do it for every single thing that I am about to bag up and pop into the freezer as well. Obviously, I do normally tend to go through things pretty quickly, or at least in terms of before they do go bad. But it's always good to make sure that I am sort of taking a look and keeping stock of everything a bit better. And then I got some pork mince. I went for around 500 grams of this, and I initially put it into 2 bags, but later on I do divide it up into 3 bags just because I got a little bit muddled in terms of proportions. But I find that this is quite a good alternative sometimes to beef mince. I do get beef mince as well. But I find that pork mince can sometimes be quite good if I want to do something more along the lines of sort of a spaghetti bolognese or some meatballs. And then I find that beef mince tends to work a bit better for something like lasagna or a bake instead. Doesn't particularly matter, but I just find that taste and texture wise, I do sometimes prefer the pork mince, but not all of the time. But because of the fact that I do sometimes want to make burgers as well, or sort of more traditional meatballs or something, I did get approximately a kilogram of beef mince. And I say approximately, but I'm pretty sure that the butcher was incredibly happy with themselves for getting it exactly a kilogram. They didn't need to put any back or get any more out, and he made a comment as well. Ah, I you'd sort of expect that a butcher with years of experience would be able to eyeball the correct amount. Although they do normally work in pounds there, and I was just like, "Can I give it to you in sort of kilograms and grams?" And they were like, "Of course, that's fine." But yeah, I just sometimes I find it really difficult to figure out proportions for how much I might want, whereas I find it a lot easier, especially given the sort of the food tracking apps that I have do things in grams, to just do it that way as well. So eventually I managed to obviously get all of that portioned up and sorted out. And it's a completely unrelated note, but I did also make the most of going into town to the butcher's to go down to the watch shop as well. And I finally got a new battery put into my watch, which is why you can probably keep seeing it catching the light in the camera. But that was another little bit of an expense. I also got two keys cut that day. So yeah, I ended up spending far too much money on the day that I went and did all of the grocery shopping, especially on non grocery related items. But some things need to be done. And then the most expensive thing that I got from the butcher's was I got 4 of these steaks for £25, which obviously does seem like a lot, but when you consider how much it costs to actually get them in sort of a restaurant or something, actually means that it's quite a bargain. If that's the way that you want to look at it, for me to at least make myself feel better about it. But I do want to be able to cook more sort of steaks, and obviously they are pretty sort of good for you and high in all of the things that I need, especially in things like iron. I do sometimes find that whenever I go for blood tests, I am short on iron. So it's good to try to eat a little bit more red meat and sort of non-processed things. I was so tempted to get sausages when I was in the butcher, but obviously they do have quite a lot of fat in them, even sort of butcher's made ones. And I just want to try to reduce that sort of processed sort of food when I can a little bit. In the same way as I didn't get any bacon. So in the end, I ended up with 19 portions of meat and then obviously the liver as well, which I'm sure will give me another couple of portions, maybe even 3 portions. But as always, thank you so much for watching. And if you enjoyed, please consider liking and subscribing. And I'll see you again soon.